Now for us to take a look at what's taking up space in the international press. Diptyka Laurent is back with us. Diptyka, I start, I guess, with one of these stories really taking up a lot of pages, both in photos and text, and it is that school shooting, once again a school shooting in the United States.
It is the school shooting, but it's really the aftermath of that school shooting that is showing no signs of dying down. Of course, that school was Marjorie Stoneman High in Parkland, Florida. It began, the aftermath began with Republican lawmakers, I quote, offering mealy-mouthed condolences while promising precisely nothing to actually reverse the situation. So this is immediately after the shooting last week. That's how the New York Times Magazine has put it. But now this weekend we've been hearing the slogans. We're seeing this palpable anger from students, from teachers, from parents, something we've not seen before. So this is really a turning point in this story. These Stoneman Douglas kids are now the new faces, perhaps, of gun reform. And while the New York Magazine admits that they don't have the deep pockets that the NRA do, and they're probably not likely to alter gun reform, they're succeeded in making it a moral issue for the first time, and that's significant. Perhaps by highlighting the obvious discrepancies. How is it that a kid in the U.S. could own a gun at 18 but not buy alcohol before 21 or even vote before 18? Well, as there's a cartoon in the Sun Sentinel that's quite poignant that really highlights this, saying perhaps a real weapon is their right to vote.
Well, yeah, that'll be one to watch. However, there are some opinion pieces, I can even say it there, saying it's brought back that termination of never again, even though we have heard that before as well.
We have heard never again, and the kids are planning to take their march to Washington, make this a national issue. They're showing no signs of dying down. Some of them haven't even had time to see a grief counselor or attend the funerals of those slain in last week's shooting. Now, what's interesting is this article from the ABC, the Australian website. It's a US journalist has written this article saying, history has shown us the power of student-led protests. They're credited for inspiring the Martin Luther King civil rights movement. They also spearheaded the outrage against the Vietnam War. So student protests in U.S. history have shown how they could control the narrative. Is fighting gun control the new social movement in the U.S.? Well, time will tell. And as I said, they might not have the deep pockets of the NRA. They do have something that politicians need: the future right to vote.
And indeed, perhaps the energy of youth as well. However, there was one counter view as well that you found by one writer for Fox News.
Well, it's important to show the conservative point of view, just to show how hard it is to really make any advancements on this issue. In this piece, the writer really takes to task the gun control advocates, and in particular the calls for more background checks. This author says background checks won't change anything. What he wants to do is get rid of gun-free zones. He says shootings like the one at the Orlando nightclub or in airports or schools are all essentially gun-free zones, and this is where the real problem lays.
Okay, yeah, I am failing
Make
to...
of that what you will.
Exactly, yeah. It's leaving me stuck for words at the minute. Let's move on to a completely different topic, Diptyka. Let's move to Syria there. Bashar al-Assad's government is, we're hearing, joining forces with the Syrian Kurds in the north of the country, so basically joining up to oust the Turkish thing, so getting an increasingly complicated battlefield.
That's right. The Syrian government is joining what has become a war within a war, really, in Syria. The Kurdish forces say they've reached an agreement with Bashar al-Assad's government to enter the region of Afrin, where they're currently fighting the Turks, and help expel the Turkish forces. It really does reflect, as the Middle East Eye puts it, the increasingly tangled battlefield in northern Syria, driven by rivalries and alliances among Kurds, rebel factions, the US, Russia, Turkey, and so forth. The Kurds say it's purely military and not political, but their deal is pivotal in how the conflict will unfold, because both sides, the Kurds and Bashar al-Assad's government, hold the most amount of territory in Syria. So this is significant. Now, a writer for the pan-Arab London-based paper Al Hayat accuses Bashar al-Assad of wanting to get his hands on a new territory that was previously beyond his reach. The paper also accuses Russia of orchestrating the whole alliance, because indeed Russia sort of brokered the deal. and say that Russia is sort of playing a delicate game between its two allies, Syria and Turkey.
Yeah, it's a real difficult one to try and make head or tail of over there. Let's move on, change of topic again. I'm hoping to something slightly lighter at least. It is getting some pretty pictures at least on the front of our papers. It's the Bafta, the British Film and Awards ceremony. Again, though, largely a red carpet turned black in solidarity with this Me Too Time's Up movement.
That's right. Most people did turn up in black. The men did, at least in their black tuxedos. A lot of actresses donned black, like we saw at the Golden Globes earlier this year, sporting Time's Up pins. Of course, all of this symbolic of the movement against sexual harassment. Now, Kate Middleton and Prince William also attended those award ceremonies. Kate Middleton, though, opted for a green dress, like a olive green. You know, if you look closely, you see it's olive green, but from a distance, it kind of looks black anyway. And many people have attacked her, saying, on social media, it must be said, saying she's not supporting the women's rights movement. It's perhaps a little unfair because one media has reminded us that royal protocol imposes that members of the royal family cannot show political sway. So perhaps her choosing a very dark green that perhaps...
But I think it's even the royal family isn't supposed to wear black, are they, unless it's at a funeral.
That's
so I
right.
think in particular, the colour black has a different connotation for the royal family.
So people say the fact that she chose olive green could be her way of finding neutral ground. You know, it's a real non-debate, really. I mean, she can wear what she wants.
It's a hard one not to be political about, I have to say. Like to stand up against sexual harassment. Let's move on and finally, Diptyka, say for the Winter Olympics, there is one French man that's making a lot of people happy, but that's not what we're going to look at. We're going to look at a sport that isn't getting much love at the minute over in the Winter Olympics.
It seems like the tides are changing now for curling, not considered the sexiest sport of the Winter Games, right?
The easiest, I would say.
Some might say the least sportive as well. Well, these Winter Games have helped obliterate the sport's, quote, tired reputation as ground zero for paunchy, beer-swilling weekend warriors. That's what the New York Times says. Curlers these days, far from being paunchy, well, they're bench pressing, banging out bicep curls, and laying off the sauce. Some have even featured in promotional calendars. They're not getting attention just for how fit they are. They're also getting attention for their uniforms, which can be quite drab, let's be honest. These ones are from the
exception then, is he?
Exactly. These are from the Norwegian curling team who've been delighting their fans with their sartorial choices. Now, they have to keep the jersey because that's regulation form, but they don't have to keep the same pants. So the Norwegian team have basically been choosing the boldest, brightest, loudest, gaudiest pants they can at their outings this Winter Games. On Valentine's Day, they had heart-shaped pants. The Guardian has put together a list of the best pants, as you see here. The one on the left of the screen there is, they did not wear that for a competition, but they did wear it kind of at the as soon as they entered the Winter Games in Pyeongchang.
I have to say, I fully approve of that garish entertaining.
They look like pyjamas.
They do look like pyjamas.
Oh, they're happy people. They're happy. Okay,
Makes
we're going to have to
laugh.
Exactly, it makes me smile. We're going to have to leave it at that. But thanks a lot to Tika Laurent for the press review.